This lesson we're going to be studying the Duane Allman solo in Stormy Monday from the Live at Fillmore East. So it's that Stormy Monday version. So I'm sure there's a ton of them out there, but that's the well-known version from that classic live album. He solos over 2 times around the changes. So in this lesson we're going to study the first time through the 12-bar changes, and then in another lesson we'll do the second part of the solo. The key is G. I've taught the chord progression to Stormy Monday, so it's probably good to check that out first, so you're familiar with the chord changes. And it's a really tasty solo. Duane Allman's really plays a lot of tasty licks in his solos. They always sometimes people solo and it's just kind of random. I feel like when he solos, every note was done with a specific intent. He's trying to emulate the human voice. There's a lot of cool bends, and that's kind of the important thing to try to get out of this lesson, is the way he bends notes and all the different variations. He's finding all these cool bluesy notes within these bends. So it's basically he's using G pentatonic major for the most part, and he's going to be up here in this range a lot, which is, we kind of refer to this as the B.B. King box. So if you got if your home bass is pentatonic minor, that's G pentatonic minor, and you got the second box, it's the next one up. That's a real majory sounding fingering here. Right there. That's more of the pentatonic minor. So here, 9 on the G string, 10 on the B string. That's going to kind of be our home bass, because that's a G, that's our root note. You want a kind of smooth, overdriven tone, not crazy distorted. You can kind of back I have my tone knob back down a little bit. So I am using the bridge pickup, but I kind of back my tone knob down on that a little bit to take the bite off a little bit. He's got a really smooth, natural, overdriven tone. And I'm using my classic 65 SG, as he did often. He played Les Paul, but also sometimes you saw him playing SG. So try to get the tone as much like it as I possibly can. So here we go. It's always good to listen to the solo before you try to attempt to play it, so I'm assuming you've done that. So the first thing, he starts right off with a bend on the 10th fret of the B string. So, and he holds it out, and it starts, it's just a slow bend from a half bend to a full bend. Just like that. Okay, then the next part, he does a little rake, if you want to try to do that, into the root note on the 8th fret of the B string. That's the lick. One more time. So it's 8, a bend on the 10th fret of the E string, then release the bend to 10 on the E string. So we have, and then a bend on the 10 on the B string to 8. So we have, and then he goes, that's just 9 on the G string. He plays the 8th fret of the B string like 3 times. And the hammer's on the 10. Okay? So that's kind of the first phrase. That's the next part. So we got 3 hits on the 8 again. Then 2 bends on the 10 on the B string. Now here's where these cool bends come in. He hits the 8 again, he goes full bend on the 11th fret of the B string, and then full bend on the 10th fret of the B string. So we got really cool. It really sounds smooth and like a singer would find all these notes. Then we go 9 to 8. And that's the next phrase. 9 to 8. And then 10 on the high E string. Release on the high E string. And then same thing. And then we have a bend pull off to the 8. It's a half bend here. You got to get these bends right, whether they're half or full bends, because he's definitely targeting specific notes. Like that. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit and go back to the beginning. So we have, that's the first bend. Then we have, I'll do that again, slow. And then we have, and then the next part. Okay, so that's what we have so far. If you're getting lost, definitely refer to the tab that I have charted out for you. Okay, next part. So that's 11 on the B string, 10 on the G string to 8 on the B string. Then he does this really cool, it's hard to do slow, but he starts on the 6 of the B string, with a slight bend, like maybe a half bend. Then you slide up to the 8 and do a full bend. Actually, it's a bend and a half, so it's a whole bend plus another half. So you're bending clear up to here, to that note. And then he does that same thing again. And that's all one pick. So you try to make that as smooth as you possibly can. So let's go back and check that out in context. Okay? Then we're going to move positions down to our kind of home base position. Like that. So it's going to do, that's the next lick. And that's going to be a bend on the 5th fret of the G string. It's a full bend, pull off to the 3. Bend, release, pull off to the 5th fret of the D string. Then you're going to hit the major 3rd on the 4th fret of the G string. So hammer on from 3 to 4. Goes great with the dominant 7 chord that we're landing on at that time. Okay? So I'm going to go back up to there and go over all these licks again. So we start with the bend. Okay, so that's where we're at. Okay, so the next lick, we're still in the same position up here. So we just did, the next lick sounds like this. So it's a little cool chromatic climb. So it's 5th fret D string. And then he chromatically goes up 3, 4, 5 on the G string. To the 3rd fret of the B string. And then this hammer on back on the G string to 3 to 4. Back to the root note on G. So we have. Okay, then we're going to come back to our position that we started at. We got another set of bends. So we have slide up to 9 on the G string, 8 on the B string, and then a 1.5 bend. So you're bending all the way to this note. So sometimes you can check your bend to make sure you're bending far enough. So that's where you need to be. And then it's just a regular full bend. So he's dropping the bend down a half step. And then that's a release to a pull off on the 8th fret. And then another full bend on the 10th fret of the E string. Then regular 10, then a full bend on the 10th fret of the B string, back to the 8. So we have just like that. Then we have something like that. Another set of bends. So we have slide up to the 9 again. Then to the 8 on the B string. Then we have a half bend. And then he bends again up 2 whole steps. Like that. Half bend, then really go high, basically as high as you can go. You're going clear to that note. Then a regular bend. And then a hammer on from 8 to 10 with a full bend at the end. Real quick bend. So we have like that, okay? And then after that, we have a descending lick, and then he's going to go up high to the octave at the 15th fret. So let's take a look at that next. Okay, so for this next lick, he does a descending little pattern. Sounds like this. It's got a couple bends and some rakes in it. So you're going to start with a full bend on the 11th fret of the B string. Then you're going to release it. Then 8, then 6. So we got. And then from 6, we go 6, and then slide from the 7th fret of the G string to the 5th fret. And then 3rd fret of the G string. And then the 6th fret of the high E string. So we have. And then we have a rake. You're going to rake the E and B strings and play the 5th fret of the G string. The way you do that is you just kind of mute the E and B string with your first finger. And then you're going to hit 6, 3. Okay, so it's. One more time. Okay, then we have, he's going to slide all the way up here to the 15th fret. So we're in the same position here, but an octave higher. He's going to slide from the 3rd fret, it's a double stop, playing the B and high E string, all the way to 15. And that's how the solo ends there. And then we go into the second round, which we'll do in another lesson. So we go, slide all the way up to 15. And then you hit 15, 18, then bend 18 and release. back to 15. Then hit 15 again, and hit this unison bend, 18 on the B string, 15 on the high E string. You do that twice, so you're only bending the B string. And then we go back to our normal position. And it's just slide up to 9 on the G string, 8 on the B string, 10 on the B string. Then a full bend, release, pull off to the 8. Then hit the 8 again, and slide from 9 to 7. So, and the reason that note, he ends on that note because right there is where we're playing the D augmented chord. And that's a D note, the root note of the chord. So if you study this, look for what notes he's particularly playing over the chords that are underneath going by. And then you try to borrow those licks and you can play in the style of Duane Allman over other blues tunes. So hopefully this will kind of give you an insight into a little bit of his style of playing. And it's, again, it's all about mastering those bends and the exact amount that he's bending as far as, is it a full step? Is it a whole plus a half step? Just a half step? So it's pretty cool. You can really find a lot of little notes in there that aren't just, you know, the frets you're playing in a full bend and a half bend. There's combinations of all that stuff. So that's the first part of the guitar solo in Stormy Monday by Duane Allman.